The Broncos are benching Russell Wilson and going with Jarrett Stidham for the final 2 games of the season. The irony here is that Jarrett Stidham was in an almost identical situation last year when he was with the Raiders, and the Raiders decided to bench Derek Carr because he had injury guarantees in his contract that would kick in if he could not pass a physical by the start of the new league year. So Russell Wilson has $37 million, I believe, in guarantees that would kick in if he could not pass a physical by the start of next season. So in order to avoid that situation, the Broncos are yanking him from the lineup entirely and trying to tell you, Sean Payton desperately was today, that this is a football decision. Let's be clear about this. It 100% is not. This is so they can move on from him at the end of the year and potentially save a little bit of money down the road.
I mean, what a day. I mean, like, I'm traveling, right? And I got this, and you're like, let's do Denver. I'm like, well, it should probably be Russell. I'm like, because I didn't check Twitter or anything. You're like, no, let's do Denver. I'm like, okay. Like, and I saw the news. I'm like, oh my gosh. I even text. I mean, I didn't get a response back, but I texted Joe Lombardi, the offensive coordinator for Denver. And I was like, hey, slow news day over there in Denver, huh? He's like, I got no idea what you're talking about. And just like went along, I'm just trying to win a game. So it is an interesting situation to me, because it's not a football decision. Because if you actually dive into the tape, like, Russell's played way better than last year, and quite honestly, playing some of his better football in the past few years. And look, I know they've won in the last 4 games and on a little bit of losing streak, but they gave Jarrett Stidham 2-year, $10 million, so $5 million a year for a backup quarterback. Like, sort of gave the indication, like, what they were thinking in case things didn't go a way that he thought it would. And it really hasn't for them. Like, there's an outside chance they get in the playoffs, but this is all about, like, protecting an investment. And there's just zero chance that Russ will be back with Sean in 2024. Like, it's just, there's no way.
It really did feel like they were going to use the first possible chance they could to make this move, because they did not want to run the risk of him getting hurt and them having to pay him out that money. This was always an arranged marriage with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. They were put together in this situation. Sean Payton's future in Denver was never tied to Russell Wilson's future in Denver. I think that was clear from the moment he took that job and the power that he was given when he took that job. So I don't think this is surprising. Some people might see the timing and the fact that they're still mathematically alive in the playoffs, but I think they wanted this to happen weeks ago, but they couldn't do that because they still had a chance to get into the postseason. So now the question becomes, what happens with Russell Wilson? If he's cut as a post-June 1st cut, it's $35 million in dead money in 2024 and $50 million in dead money in 2025. There are teams that I think have helped themselves in the team building process. The Bucs this year is a good example. They ate everything they had to with Brady. They took it all on the chin in 1 year, and they were able to turn the page. The Broncos are in such a tough situation with this that I don't even think they can do that. I think the number is almost too big when you look at all the other contracts they've handed out. They would have to start borrowing from some of these deals, McGlinchey, Zach Allen, a lot faster than they probably want to. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went the post-June 1st route in order to even field the roster in the way they want to next year. But that you're still looking at $85 million total in dead money over the next 2 years. I mean, this is one of the biggest missteps that a team has made in a while at quarterback. The trade, but mostly the contract that they gave him before he even played a single game there.
Well, it was an extension. He's not even going to be playing on the extension, Robert. That's what's crazy about it, right? Like, that's what's wild to me. And it is a bit misstep. It's probably the biggest one that I've seen at a quarterback position in so long, because you're literally just like, you're handicapping your team for the next year or two. Like, and listen, I understood these owners have all the money in the world. You still got to get into the salary cap. You still got to fill the roster. You still got to take money away from other people. And what are you going to do next year as far as quarterback wise? You're gonna have to draft someone. Who knows what they're going to be picking? You're going to have to maybe get into a veteran free agent on a low salary like Baker Mayfield, right? Like, all those things exist, and that's what I tweeted today. And we had a little group chat with our NFL Total Access people on NFL Network. And I'm just like, I sent it to them because all the stuff, not only the monetary value and the financial value that they gave up to get Russ, but all the players, everything like that. And I'm like, this might be the worst trade in NFL history. Like, what the Broncos made.
Two picks that they used, those first round picks, before you even get into the second round picks, was Devin Witherspoon and Charles Cross. So an impact corner and a potential 10-year starter at left tackle are the two pieces they got in the first round. And Geno's playing better than Russ. So you think
Drew
all
Lock
those
is
things
even playing as good as Russ, which is part of the trade. That's what's crazy.
We'll see what happens with the Deshaun Watson move. That may give this a run for its money over the next couple of years, but it is one of the biggest swings and misses we've seen at the quarterback position in a long time. But what we're trying to answer today with these teams is, what are they going to do at quarterback next year? And this is a unique circumstance because some of these teams are going to have the financial flexibility to spend on even a mid-tier veteran free agent. The Broncos, and having to pay Russ and then also some of the contracts they handed out last offseason, they don't have a ton of financial flexibility. So it feels like they're going to need to go a pretty cheap route here and maybe should go a pretty cheap route here. You mentioned the Jared Stidham deal. He's under contract. So I think there's a world where if he plays well enough over these final 2 games, they liked him enough to give him that sort of contract. Do they just ride with him in 2024 rather than making a lateral move to a Jameis Winston or someone else that would theoretically be affordable given their situation? I'll be fascinated by how that plays out.
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, Robert, right? Like they gave Jarrett Stidham that contract because that coaching staff, and they told me even because they were looking at bringing me in a little bit last offseason, and then they wanted like, hey, we got some money to spend, but we want like a younger guy, but also that's proven himself just a little bit. And you look at the last 2 or 3 games for the Raiders last year, what Stidham did, like he earned every bit of that contract. And him with Sean Payton, these next 2 games, it seems to me like this is almost like a tryout for 2024 for Jared Stidham. Mm-hmm. And the coaching staff probably would have given him more if they would have, because look, at the end of the day, Russell Wilson's going to be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He's won Super Bowls. Like this had to be a tough talk with him and Sean Payton when he told him this morning in his office, like you're benching him. Like at the end of the day, you're benching him, right? And you got to tell the team it's a national news story. But this is a really good opportunity for Jared Stidham because there's a real chance. Like, look, who knows with what the Chiefs are doing? Like they could easily lose their next 2. They got Cincy and they got LA, right? And if the Broncos somehow win the next 2 and the Chiefs lose the next 2, which is a possibility, they would win the AFC West. And Jared Stidham would like be quarterbacking that, which is wild to think about. That's why they're still in it, like more than mathematically in it. Yeah, they got to have some stuff to happen, but it could happen. I've seen crazier stuff happen. And then you go into next year and you're saying, hey, a $5 million quarterback, right? Baker with what he was able to do, which I think, they have better weapons down there with Baker in Tampa, but Baker's making $4 million. Like Stidham could easily make $5 million and they could draft a day 2 guy and a guy that they feel really strongly about and sort of build it over. Or, it just depends. Like, I feel like that's what's so fascinating about when you said, hey, we're going to look at all these quarterback situations and where's the money and all that. Teams always seem to find the extra money somehow, some way. So Absolutely. Like if Sean Payton wanted to make some splash trade at quarterback, he could do it. Like they could find a way to do it. But I feel like these next 2 games for Jared Stidham, and I'm glad you brought up Jameis because Jameis is out there and Sean's had success with Jameis, but I don't think Jameis is a long-term answer at all.
He's not a long-term answer. No. It was more who are they familiar with that would be available for cheap next year? Because if you're still paying Russell $35 million against the cap next year, even with that, if you look at their contract, their cap situation, if you cut him and it's $35 million, they're still $18 million over the cap. And they've got a couple guys they can move on from. DJ Jones, they'd save $10 million. Tim Patrick, they'd save $10 million. But this is still a team that gave out a lot of contracts this offseason. They spent more in free agency than any other team in the league. So they're not exactly flushed with cap space. And if they want to move some of this money around, they'd be moving money around on a 29-year-old Mike McGlinchey, a 31-year-old Justin Simmons, a 32-year-old Garrett Bowles, a 29-year-old Cortland Sutton, who they didn't seem all that attached to this offseason when he was on the trade market. So I don't know where they'd want to save some of that money. Yes, it'd be possible for them to make a more short-term, let's win now decision, but I'm curious if that's where their heads are at, or they try to find someone in the draft on day 2 so they can start that rookie quarterback clock at some point. Because in 2025, Russ will make up $50 million of the cap. It's easier to swallow that if you're paying a potential second-round starter, whether it be Bo Nix or Michael Penix or whoever they like, $800,000 against the cap. That's how you can survive this, is if you get a cheap option somewhere along the way.
So I don't know. Yeah, first you got to have a cheap option. Totally agree. I don't know, and I don't think that Sean and that offensive system, because I've been in it, it's very, very difficult system to learn. It takes multiple years. I just don't see a rookie coming in. Like, Sean doesn't mess with rookie quarterbacks. Tell me the last rookie quarterback Sean's had. It's been Breeze.
Well, it helps when you had Breeze for 10 years, right?
Yeah, 10 years, but also like they even went the veteran route with Jameis. They were going to draft Patrick Mahomes in 2017 and they missed out by one pick. That would have been a crazy situation. Sean would probably still be in New Orleans if that would have happened. But like that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand is like, and I'm glad that this is brought up, because I just don't know if they're going to find and start if they draft a quarterback in the first round or draft a quarter, it's got to be some type of cheap veteran. Because this offensive scheme and what they expect to do, like they handle all the run game Mike IDs, they handle all the pass game Mike, like it is very intricate, every single detail, multiple run pass skills, multiple alerts, and there's a reason. Yeah, it helps when you have Breeze, but there's a reason why you can't really have a rookie running this offense, and for the first year, it just would not look the same, and it would be completely different, in my opinion.
That's why I think drafting somebody in the second round, third round, wherever they end up doing it, and having it be a more developmental, quote unquote, pick for that guy to start in 2025, that actually makes a lot of sense to me, because they've done that. They drafted Garrett Grayson in the third round. They drafted Ian Book in the fourth round. They've gone and taken swings on guys in the middle rounds when Sean was in New Orleans. So saying, all right, we're going to have somebody that knows the system, whether it's Stidham, Jameis, whoever, for year one, have somebody that could potentially keep the train on the tracks, and while we're developing someone at the same time, that makes the most sense to me. We'll say if that makes the most sense to them.